Run Your Story family. This is Allison Gilliard with Run Your Story, where every story needs to be heard, and it's Christmas. So exciting, and Merry Christmas to everyone. And if you celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah, because it also starts today. So we love all of our listeners and are incredibly thankful for all of you. And we are extraordinarily thankful for this very special episode of Run Your Story with the one and only Kitty York, who is an extraordinary individual in our community. She is just a heart unlike any other, and anyone that knows her knows how incredibly special she is. She's just a godsend, and she has spoken so much life into my life, and her prayers are absolutely incredible. And so for this very special episode, we thought, since it's Christmas, and we all start reflecting on our goals, and we look back over what the year has brought, and that is so much of what legacy is seeing what we've poured into others and what others poured into us. And as we believe here in Run Your Story, all of our stories are connected. And you're going to hear that in Kitty's story, because if you've listened to any of the stories and you've heard Annie's and you've heard Sarah Nell's and you've heard them talk about their grandfather and the impact that he had on their lives. And so I got to sit down with Kitty and share her perspective on what it was like seeing her dad mentor her children, not only on the pavement, but also in life. And that is so much of what running is, as Kitty shares, is that it's a parallel, running and life, and all the races that we're in, both physically and spiritually. So Kitty York, I just absolutely love you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this story and for the legacy that not only you were pouring into others, but as your dad poured in to not only his grandkids and to you, but also to this community to make it what it is. And so I'm eternally grateful for the York family. I absolutely adore them, and I'm so incredibly grateful that I get to call this family a second family, that I get to call them friends. I adore them, and I encourage you, if you're local, get to know them. If you don't live locally, I encourage you to shop at Do Goods Mercantile, because that is Annie, which Kitty's daughter owns, and that story in itself is just absolutely beautiful. And I love going into Do Goods. I love supporting Do Goods. So many of our Christmas presents this year came from Do Goods, and we just love that. I love that store. And make sure when you go in that you use code RunYourStory20, because you get a discount on an item, because Annie and her family and Do Goods, the store, they believe in Run Your Story. They are just absolutely incredible. Annie's always giving me names, which I love to hear that, and of people that she would love to hear. And when you guys shop locally, not only are you pouring back into our economy, but you're pouring into others, because that's what Do Goods does. They sell everything from locally to globally. Everything there has a purpose and a reason behind it, whether that is helping a survivor of human trafficking, or maybe it's helping a veteran, or maybe it's helping one of our local nonprofits. Do Goods carries everything in that store that has a purpose and an incredible mission behind it. So definitely check them out. Follow them on social media. Make sure to tell Annie and Chops, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. They believe in this running community. They're runners themselves. And again, you're going to get to hear such a full circle moment when you hear Kitty share her dad's story. So again, I'm incredibly thankful to this community, incredibly thankful to Do Goods, as they are our podcast partner of the month. So I highly encourage you guys, reach out to them. If you find something online, or if you open up a present today and you're like, I wish I got something from Do Goods, go shopping at Do Goods, guys. Again, I went shopping earlier. Probably going to go again. So definitely check them out. And we just, again, absolutely incredibly thankful for Do Goods, for Annie and the family, Chops. Absolutely just 10 out of 10 golden people. And when you guys listen to Kitty, you're going to know where that comes from. And again, Kitty, my friend, I adore you. I love you so much. And I'm so thankful for you and the stories that you've shared and for who you are. So guys, lace up those new running shoes. Get ready, get set, and go listen to my incredible friend Kitty and the legacy story.
Oh, yeah!
So excited because anybody that knows anything about me knows how much I love me some Kitty York. And those that the name may sound familiar, that would be because we've had two of your fantastic, phenomenal daughters on, Sarah, Nell, and Annie, who I just love.
Me too.
And so I'm so excited because both of them have talked in their podcast, but also in person about the impact that not only that you have had on their life, but their grandfather with running, which I think is so precious because it's Christmas morning when this is coming out. And so what better way to celebrate Christmas than to talk about legacy? And so what do you remember about your dad running, Kitty?
Oh my goodness. This is one of my favorite things about my daddy. He ran before there were running shoes, before it was a thing. I can remember people saying to me, I saw your daddy running the other day. Is everything all right? Like he was running to something or from something. I can remember him. He coached boxing in optometry school, and so running was always a part of his daily discipline. And so he ran every day. I can remember him mowing the yard, and he would just have on yard shoes or something. He'd say, I'm going for a run. He ran every day. Often he would say, Kit, you want to go with me? And I'd say, yes, sir. And I'd go a block or two and say, Daddy, I'm done. And he'd run me back home. And then I got to where I ran more with him. But he was very, very consistent and disciplined. And because of his walk with the Lord, it was parallel to him. It was part of how he grew in Christ as he applied the discipline of running, enduring, pushing through. And he taught me a whole lot in life about the Lord, and he taught me a lot through running. So as I got older and ran, my knees won't run anymore. And it's not safe to say that I was a good runner, but I liked running. We would run together, and then as I started having children, they would begin to run with them. And so, as my girls have said, he was very influential in that in their lives. Not just physical running, but running the race of life with Jesus.
Speaking of that, Annie has shared, and so has Sarah Nell, about how your dad was part of a group that would get together with running and also talk about spiritual things.
Every time, always. They met with regularity. My memory, having gone away to college, then coming back, those things happened when I was away too. But my memory when I returned, typically on a Saturday morning, a little group would gather and run, and Mama would fix some breakfast. They'd sit around the table, and that was the conversation as they ran. He shared the gospel. There were people in the group who were believers and were applying truth, and then they'd scoop in somebody that didn't know Jesus, and they'd get to hear about Jesus as they ran or talked before or after. Powerful.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What the impact, as we've talked about, that obviously now most of your children have ran.
All of them.
All of them have run. You've had a couple that went to college running.
One that competed in college and the other baseball, but they all have run and continue to run.
And how much do you think that your daddy played into that?
Oh, I think a whole lot. All of us. I can remember my husband ran with my daddy a lot. They trained and ran marathons together. And that, training for a marathon is like a second job. You spend a whole lot of time. So that's another time that groups would gather and spend a lot of time running. But for sure, he impacted my children. I can remember my second daughter, Lolly, that you need to meet, is the one who competed in college. And she's run several marathons. And I can remember picking her up from school like in the second grade and asking her how her day was. And she'd say, it was great. We got to run the mile in PE. Aww. As a little girl, she just loved it. And then, of course, that was music to my daddy's ears, and they would run together. And I think that she ran her first road race with Big Daddy and her daddy. Oh. And it was just, and she continued to run road races with him. So he had a huge impact. And again, his biggest impact was spiritually, and it was so often interwoven with.
Oh my goodness. Oh. As you talked about, as you were growing up and the older you got, the more you got to run with your dad. What are some of those memories that you have of running with him?
One of the memories is that when we would begin running, his feet were like a metronome. As soon as he started running, the rhythm was established and it never changed.
Wow.
And I have the privilege of having watched his life. And he wasn't perfect, but he lived a very consistent life, walking with the Lord, trusting him, and up hills and through valleys and puddles and struggles. I watched him. So that heightened everything for me to see it physically applied and spiritually. This wasn't running, but I had the privilege of working in Daddy's office. I started in the 6th grade. He was an optometrist. And so God used that to shape and to call me into teaching. But we would spend the summers at the bay, and I can remember running with him on that hot bay road and then riding to work with him every day. And that was a good little ride to and from. And the truths that he instilled and imparted, and the way he trained me in his office just to serve God and to deal with patients and work with children with learning problems, all of those things joined together, and surely running was a huge component of that, helped shape me and always point me to Jesus, for which I'm very grateful.
Absolutely. Oh, and for those that don't know, anybody in my phone, when it says Kitty, it says female Jesus. So because I love Kitty York. Just love, absolutely. Do you have a favorite cherished memory of watching your dad with your kids running?
I can't think of a specific one other than let's just go for a run. I do have a memory of as Daddy got older and one of his hips gave way. And I remember he and Lolly were running. I think it's still in place. It's down the Bay Road, maybe from the hotel, the Grand Hotel, Big Tree. It was always in memory of someone. And I remember they went over and ran that together. And that was his last road race before he had to have a hip replacement. So that's a special memory that they got to do together. But Annie, Sarah Nell, Mary Ashley, Boss, all of them, Lolly, they all got to know him better through those runs. And I'm so grateful. And that is a huge legacy. Obviously, they've mentioned it, they've talked about it. And it's just so fun to think back. I remember when Jay started law school in 78, we walked into a mall to the first running shoe store that I had ever seen.
That's the mall here?
In Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
And that's how old we are. But you would, if you ran, you just got some tennis shoes and ran. But we walked in and the wall was covered with, I remember when the different brands came out, Brooks, and Daddy loved Brooks to start with. And that's so silly for somebody young like you can't imagine that there haven't always been running shoes. But then Daddy, he started wearing real running shoes instead of yard shoes. And that was just fun to watch that. And I remember, in line with physical stuff, I can remember as a family, there were 4 of us, and Mom and Daddy would pray with us. I remember kneeling around the bed at night, and part of that evening time together too was working out. We would do sit-ups, we would do exercises together, and I think that always Daddy and Mama, my precious Mama, made clear life lessons in physical activity or daily routines or something, and I'm very thankful for that. It is a rich legacy.
Absolutely. Oh. Did he have a favorite race that he liked to do?
That is a really good question. I always think of the Azalea Trail Run because we remember the first one. And that's another thing, kind of like running shoes. Those were hot then. They were brand new. And I can remember the trail run always attracted a Kenyan.
Right, yeah.
And because I just watched those things grow, as I look back, I think those were big deals in that time and place. And so I think because he was in the inaugural Azalea Trail Run, that might have been his favorite.
Wow. He was at the very first Azalea Trail.
Very first one. And had all the shirts. That's one thing. And kept them all. And so when Mom and Daddy went to heaven and we were going through his things, some of the kids took some of his running. He had so many running shirts. One of my sisters made him a quilt.
Oh, wow.
He had all kinds of shirts. But I think the Azalea Trail Run would probably be most special because he was a part of the first one. And I guess he participated in every one until he couldn't.
Now, you guys as a family, your girls have talked about, was it the Murphy Run that you guys would do?
Yes. So fun. Yes, the Panther Pride Run.
Panther Pride, okay.
When my children were at Murphy, had a wonderful lady, Karen Ninstal, who began that. And it was a great race. As you know, it's a flat race, and our whole family would participate in that. And they gave great Chick-fil-A prizes and we'll run for food. And that was a family tradition. And then for a few years, I think it fizzled out. It might have been reinstituted, but it was a great fundraiser, and we loved Murphy so much. So it was everything good in one place. My daddy went to Murphy. So all of us, Jay and I went, all of our children. So it was an especially meaningful, fun time for us.
Now I have to ask this. Isn't, when you first met Chops, running Murphy, did he come in blue jeans?
I think he did. If Annie said that, it's true. I think he did. But now he has caught the bug, and he runs, but not in blue jeans.
I was just wondering if you remember what you thought when he showed up in blue jeans.
Well, if you're in our house and it was Panther Pride Run Day, you went. So I guess he said, well, I guess I'm running, and he did. But it was really fun. Poor Chops. He doesn't run in blue jeans anymore. He's a good runner.
He's the good. The transition of running with your dad and then watching your kids run, what was that like?
Oh, my goodness. Well, to know that he had made deposits in their lives in so many ways, mostly spiritual and, of course, in the running. It always was a thread, always. And so watching them, all of them ran competitively in high school, at least, cross-country mostly, and then some in track. But it was just always a special thing. It was like always a connection and always a thread, if you will, because of Daddy's influence in that regard. It heightened things. It made it way more special.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite questions, and that is, and you've already hinted to it, in running and in life, they just go hand in hand. So much of our faith talks about running. So what are some lessons that you've learned from running?
Persevere. I can remember when I used to run, I'll say a hill. It was probably just a rise in the road, but when I was going up an incline, I can remember saying, Lord, help me get up this, and then whatever hill I was climbing in life. And then I can remember on the downside, at first I'd say, oh, thank you. Almost like, I got this. And he taught me, he alone is my strength, whether I'm going up a hill or down a hill, through a storm, through the sunshine. Apart from him, I can do nothing. There's so many parallels, and endurance is surely a big one. And even when you don't feel like it, even if you're tired or just not interested, by the same token, pick up his word, go to him in prayer. All of the spiritual disciplines indeed parallel. And I think we're all running a race of life. Either we're on God's team or we're still in the kingdom of darkness into which we're born. And so to be in the race of life with Jesus means to have received him as our Savior, and then he is our strength, our guide, our shepherd. He's everything, and he's the one who's going to take us all the way to the finish line. This is not our home. That's the best news of all.
That's right. Yes. Absolutely. When you talked about when you're going up a hill in life or having a bad day, is there something that you tell yourself to get through those moments?
Apart from him, I can do nothing. I know that God alone is my source, my strength, and to just depend on him. I remember when I was in college, our school had a bike program called Wandering Wheels.
Oh, okay.
So I've never ridden a 10-speed, and so there was a spring break trip. We were going to bike from Jacksonville, Florida to Orlando, to Disney World. So I said, oh, goody, I want to. So we got on, it was called a possum. We rode a bus from Indiana because we slept like a mother carries her young at night. We slept on the possum, woke up in Florida, and some of the coaches took us out, those who had never put us on 10 speeds. We practiced, so we began our trek. And I can remember we were going over a bridge, and each group had a captain. And we were going up a bridge, and my captain's name was Rob, and I said, I don't believe I can make this. And I remember hearing his bike, and the next thing I felt was his hand on my back, coming alongside me and pushing me. And I know that's not running, but it's applicable, I think, as well, because I know that I can't work through any storm or hill or whatever life brings on my own. And my shepherd is constantly with me, helping me up that hill or through that storm. That was just a real picture for me.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. What advice would you give to somebody that wants to start running or walking?
I would say today's the day.
No day. Hey, I love it.
It's a glorious opportunity to keep moving, which the older we get, particularly, to be outside and to be unplugged. It's the perfect time to spend time with God in prayer. It's a perfect time to fellowship with others, to have sweet communion with a family member or a dear friend. There's nothing like it. And again, the parallels are so strong. And I want to finish my race well, and that's a wonderful thing, to begin a physical journey and begin to apply the spiritual truths as well.
Oh, any final words of wisdom, Kitty?
Goodness. To keep our eyes on Jesus. In Scripture, it talks about to run with perseverance and to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, the finish line, what matters. I think that for me, and I need to do it many times a day, but to focus on the eternal and what's unseen, and the things of earth really do grow strangely dim. And I was reading that during Advent, the scripture that tells us that the things that are not seen, we focus on those things, because there's lots of glitz and glitter and distracting stuff, but the unseen God of the universe, to see him, to focus on him, because eternity is what matters.
Absolutely. Oh, Kitty, thank you for sharing your heart and the story of your dad's legacy and for your kids. I jokingly say, but not really jokingly say, that I am an honorary York member.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Allie York.
I joke on Sarah Nell a lot, but you can't help but love her. You can't help but just yank her leg around.
She's fun.
And just what Annie's done with Do Goods, and my favorite place to go shop, and just
mine too,
hang out. And
you've been so wonderful about advertising for them. But
it's
that's a wonderful place.
Oh, and you just walk in and it's just so fun just to go hang out, and you know that everything there has a purpose and a reason for it. And I don't know, you've raised some extraordinary individuals. And so I'm getting to know more and more York kids, which I love. I love that. But I just want to say thank you for what you've done in this community, for walking, being involved, and sharing your dad's story. It's beautiful, Kitty.
Allie, I am so grateful. We love you, and may God be glorified through this all. Anything good in my children is straight from the heart of God. He is faithful even when we are not.
Absolutely. Oh, love you guys.
Love you. Thank you.
Don't you just love Kitty York? She's just absolutely amazing. And I can share firsthand how incredible she is. Like I said earlier, she has poured so many words of wisdom into my own life. And she brings such an authentic and genuine love that I cannot even imagine what it was like being raised in the house with her. Because wow, just phenomenal. And to know Annie and Sarah now, I've gotten to meet Lolly. It's such an incredible family, and I can't wait to meet all of the York family, because they're just incredible human beings all together. One extraordinary family that's doing extraordinary things, and so much of that was set generations ago. And so, Kitty, thank you so much for being vulnerable, for opening up your heart, and for sharing what it was like to have a running dad, and for getting on the pavement with him, and for sharing all of that. And also what it was like watching your kids, watching that transition of your dad now running with your kids, how special that really is. And so thank you so much, Kitty, for sharing that. The love that you have for people is incredible. And it's just a reminder this holiday season that people are way more important and everything else is secondary. And so as Kitty says, we are all running a race, and it's important to know that destination. So thank you, Kitty, so much for sharing your heart, for being who you are, and for loving me, because I am a hard person to love. So thank you, Kitty, so much for that. To Annie, Chops, to all of the York gang, thank you for being a shining example in our community of a running family. You guys are absolutely incredible. I think all the York siblings should know that. I adore you. So I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you guys more on the pavement, because I've heard, and I've gotten to meet Lolly, that some more York kids have moved back. So welcome to Mobile. So exciting to have that and to see you guys on the pavement. It's going to be really, really cool. So thank you again for all that you do for making our community better. Definitely go check out Do Good's Mercantile, guys. They are a podcast partner of the month. They do incredible things. Make sure to use that code RYS20 and save you a little money on something. Definitely go get you something really nice and supporting a really good cause, because you can go in there and you can ask them, hey, what is the support? They carry some of my most favorite jewelry, and if you know anything about me, I love a good pair of earrings, and I got a pair. So excited. Love, love, love. So definitely go check them out. You can find them on St. Michael Street, or you can follow them on social media. You can also find them on their website, which is Do Good's Mercantile. You can also go to Run Your Story website as well, and there's a link there because they are highlighted this month as our podcast partner. Definitely go check them out, follow them, make sure to tell them thank you for believing in the Run Your Story community, and we cannot wait to see the family out on the road. Love, love, love them. As always, thank you to Greg Gilliard from Gilliard Tech Services for editing our podcast, for making us all sound amazing, and for updating our website. We have big things coming in 2025 we are super pumped about, so he's been really busy putting that all into play, and we are incredibly thankful for that. So if you guys need anybody that can freshen up a website or start from scratch, Gilliard Tech Services is your go-to. Definitely make that 2025 website stand out, and he can do that for you. Also check out our blog, which is also on the website. Dave McDonald does such a fantastic job of breaking down shoes and now gear, as he will be releasing some upcoming gear reviews. We are really excited to read all of that he's been doing. I've gotten kind of some snippets from him just with chatting. So he is the go-to, and we are so excited that he's part of our Run Your Story family and all that he does with Run Your Story. Definitely check him out. He has a marathon coming up. Guys, go and support him there as well. And so thank you to Gilliard Tech Services and Dave, the shoe guy, for all that you guys do to make Run Your Story really cool and possible. As always, our Patreon supporters, we love and adore you. We hope that you enjoyed this special edition of the Christmas special of Running on the Pavement. And we love our Patreon supporters. They are absolutely phenomenal. We cannot wait for 2025. We have some really cool things in store, some big announcements coming. And so we are truly grateful for that. And our Patreon supporters make all of this possible. If you want to be a part of the Patreon community, you can do that. You can go to our website. There's a little shoe icon there that says to become a Patreon supporter. You can click on that. Guys, we have some special things in store for listeners too, but especially for our Patreon supporters. We are really excited. We love our Patreon family members. They keep this podcast going. It does cost to put on a podcast, and January 2025 will cost us. And so we get that money back throughout the year from our Patreon supporters. And so we love them. They believe in this podcast. We believe in them. So they keep us going. They keep us encouraged. They keep us wanting to put out more podcasts. So thank you so much to our Patreon family members. We absolutely love you and hope that today is extra special for you. To all of our listeners, thank you so much for being who you are, for listening to the podcast. We love hearing how much you guys love them. Make sure you like, share, and comment. It's so much fun to hear throughout the community when we're at running events or we're just hanging out, or I get a random text from a friend saying, hey, I met somebody that listens to the podcast. It's so fun, but definitely make sure that you're like, sharing, and commenting on the stories. That helps the algorithms to where more people can get exposure to the podcast. So while we love being local, we do know that every story needs to be heard. And so we've shared all the way from California to Carolinas. Who knows where else we're going to be. So we love sharing our stories, and we're so excited to be able to do that and extremely honored. And we have some really cool ones coming up, guys. We are so pumped about 2025 and just all the things, all the places we're going to be at. So we're really excited for all of that. So make sure that you're subscribing. We also have a YouTube channel as well. And also make sure that you're sharing, liking, and commenting. We want to hear back. You're going to want to comment on this one too. As always, guys, we cannot thank you enough for believing in this podcast, especially on days like this where it's extra special to be able to share something different and a very unique story. And on special days like Christmas or Hanukkah, we are very, very thankful that we have people from all walks of faith and from all walks of life that listen to this podcast. And we hope that you find strength in one another, and that you find strength in your faith, and that you find strength on the pavement. Until next time, guys, go run your story, because every story needs to be heard.